Thank you for joining the Change I Am Possible, which is India's first future tech podcast. And today I'm delighted and honored to have with me Mr. Ganesh Harinath, who's the Vice President, CTO of 5G MEC AI platforms and next-gen applications at Verizon Media. He is a vision, innovation, and revenue generation driven technology leader and has orchestrated and executed a massive cloud artificial intelligence strategy named Orion, which generates tens of millions of dollars, plus an edge intelligence strategy titled Leo, which is poised to generate $1 billion in the next few years for Verizon and Verizon Media. So, Ganesh, it's a pleasure and honor to have you on the show. Thank you for taking time being part of this humble podcast of ours. How has the journey been from Osmania University, India to Silicon Valley as the Vp-Cto 5G MEC and AI platforms at Verizon Media?
Yes, definitely, Harry, and sincerely appreciate reaching out to me and then having this conversation. I was a backbencher when I was in high school. And my social teacher said, you know what, if you're not going to improve your handwriting, you're never ever going to pass the 10th grade. I think something happened between undergrad and graduation, where I started to look at life slightly differently. And I took it so seriously, I got into Osmania University for master's in electronics. And then finally I said, I have to get a gold medal, and then I just got it. So look at the guy who was a backbencher, and then suddenly, what's between the two? I think it's just those experiences. It'll actually make you think and then do certain things. And we see a lot of movies in India, right? So the guy with the suitcase going somewhere, and that's a very similar story too. I came here and landed in LA, and then finally here in the Valley. Wife and blessed with 2 kids who are high schoolers right now. It's so amazing to really see this generation of kids. When I try to compare myself, I was 5% of what they are today.
Right.
In terms of learning, their experience, exposure, they got lucky too. And that's slightly on the personal front. But going back, it's super important. You have to start to believe in certain things. And don't wait for others to prescribe what those beliefs should be. You have to listen to. Once you start enjoying it, and I'm a very big believer of fast forwarding 2 years and 3 years about anything. That way you can actually start to have an idea in terms of where you want to go. Then you start to align things for your own self. If we sit here and then say, oh, this is what I want today, that's fantastic. But it's only about today and about 6 months from now. But start thinking where you want to be, what you want to be, and what kind of experiences you want to live through next 2 years, 3 years. And I've been applying that to me. And even this morning, I was actually in a very interesting circle where I was surrounded. I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by a few Stanford professors and Berkeley professors. I was actually reflecting on the difference between the needs and wants. Okay? And this is where we as individuals and as technologists, as we go through our education process, as we start to get into the industry, we always aspire to innovate around wants. The needs are left behind. I'll tell you that. But let's fast forward, right, from 25 years ago to now. A lot of these things happened to me primarily because of my associations. I wouldn't have been who I am without my team. I wouldn't have been who I am without my wife, my kids. I wouldn't have been who I am without mom, my dad,
exactly,
who used to directionally mentor with all the hardships around, right? So, from a very middle class background. Both my parents were working, but it was a very large family. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. So, aspect of space got into me very early on too. So, I'll share some stories as we continue to talk about that. But to just summarize, to really make an interesting journey, don't be agenda driven. I have to talk to Eddie because I want to get something out of Eddie. You know, that's not going to take too far. Be very open-minded. Meet more people.
Exactly.
Associate yourselves with goodness in the community. Think about community and society too. So these are super important things which I apply and treat everybody as equal. I can say with a very high degree of confidence, I feel very contented. And that feeling is only because, not because I was super smart, because you remember what my teacher said? She said, I can't even pass the 10th grade.
10th grade because of bad handwriting.
So that's my story. But the friends, my parents, my brother, sister, then my wife, my kids, everybody that's learning, and friends even around me now, as early as just a few years ago, just a couple of my friends and colleagues were discussing various aspects. So keep those things in mind.
Lovely. Yeah, so yes, I mean, I hope that somewhere down the line, not in a bad way, and I hope your teacher is listening and seeing that, how successful you are. And, so the story you mentioned about backbencher, it resonates with me because I have also been in a backbencher, and education was something which I really didn't take to, and it's only so I'm a college dropout. I dropped out at 12th. I took music as a career, and then I set up business, and I'm doing pretty good with that. But education was never my main connect. And so I never really looked at education. But then in 2015, I discovered virtual reality, and then it's like a rabbit hole. I started self learning. I looked at internet. I believe that the internet is the biggest teacher in the world, and I started digging at all of these great things which is there in the books. It's there in the internet, and the knowledge is freely available. It's the only thing that's stopping someone is the desire and intent. If you have the desire and intent, you can do whatever you want. There's no stopping because of the internet. I think we all, whether we're sitting in the urban or a rural place, if you have internet and a desire and intent, you could connect with peers from anywhere around the world and create businesses and billion-dollar businesses. So it's super exciting. Now you opened up something really, really cool, which I think we should talk a little bit more about: needs and wants, and being content. There are so many stories of these billionaires, multi-billionaires who are sick, who are unhappy with the business, are depressed, and so on and so forth. I was having a conversation with two founders of a startup called 21K. 21K is India's first online school, and I was so blown by the conversation because here's these two young individuals from Bangalore who want to completely democratize education. Their intention is to take education, the school, to the homes of students, not just in urban area but in rural areas, because we have a digital divide. Even right now there are so many people in India who do not have basic computers or laptop to educate themselves. Neither they have the money. But here is 21K who's saying that we will give you the best education, not substandard. We will give you the best education in the world to people who want to take it in the urban area, which is an online school, plus in rural areas, and take the school to the students. So how cool is that? Because those entrepreneurs have understood the difference between needs and wants, and are consciously aware of their role in this universe and want to spread goodness. So let's just talk a little bit more about that, because let's inspire people here in India, because we are a growing economy, a growing nation. If we have this kind of mindset, we are the global superpower. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Bringing education to home, right? That's a fantastic idea. I would like to cite my own personal lifetime goal, which I aspire to. To me, playing a part in improving computer literacy. I'm not talking about education. Computer literacy is my lifetime goal. I'm trying to find my way to associate myself with United Nations to see how, through various strategies, make a global impact. So the journey has begun for me. That's on one side. You reflected it very well. It is just your curiosity, right? If there is no curiosity, it's a newspaper. We read and we forget, right?
Right.
Have the curiosity and the questions. You can reach any corner of the world to get any information. Look at Coursera, courses that are offered. Stanford opens up many things.
MOOCs.
Right?
Yeah.
So the wealth of information by the best people in the world are made freely available. I don't think 10 years ago we could actually envision a world like what we are living right now.
Exactly.
And this is where I'm saying today, the digital device is a need. It's not a want. It's a need. It's a need for better human experience for any and everybody. Interestingly, there's a citation that 33% of the world population, they still don't have any cellular connectivity or phone. That still continues to exist. I'm sure when we start to take a closer look at the actual divide, because so I can't do a Stanford course on this device. It's practically impossible. Right? When we smart innovators aspire to actually project a screen in the air, which can help only 5% of the population, invest time in thinking about the needs and bring in those innovations too. Innovate the digital sheet, right? So thin and so cheap, which has trickle speed internet, using which anybody can connect to internet almost at no cost. Right? These are needs. So the rate at which the technology is advancing today is 10 times faster than 5 years ago.
Right.
And that's a topic that we can continue to discuss in a few minutes. I want to park that for now. I wanted to cite that only because it's important we improve our curiosity and absorb a lot of the things. That way, as we all are better individuals, we can make a difference.
I think we have the world or Earth is filled with abundance for everyone. Though the present narrative and the way the centralized nature of a world and institution functions and capitalism has given rise to just a handful of people or billionaires hoarding these massive resources. The data says that 1% of the global population holds 95% of the entire global wealth. Now, even if half of it would get trickled, the most needy around the world, a world would be really transformed. And that's the reason I'll go back to the conversation that I was having with the founders of the 21 Case School, is because it's not that they are not economically driven. They are creating a business which I think is going to be $1 billion business, and because it's the first of its kind, and the numbers are growing. 2020 when they started, there was only 300 students. Now there's 2,500. It's exponential anyway. In another 5 years, 10 years, who knows what the numbers could be. So they are looking at the economics, but they are also trying to work with the society and create a ecosystem where instead of charging a bomb, he's constantly thinking about bringing the price down of education. So that I thought was very profound, because the traditional brick and mortar education system here in India, it's increasingly getting expensive. There is a 85,000 crore standing amount of student debt, and the bankers have stopped giving loans to students because of that. So it's becoming a problem. And on the other side, which you just spoke about, you highlighted, I'm going to highlight that point, that massive open online courses are giving education for free. And from the top education institutes in the world, such as Stanford, MIT, and so on and so forth. So the only thing that's stopping you is always your desire and intent. I wish you the very best for your project that you're talking about with UN for computer literacy. We definitely do need that, because the world is growing exponentially. And you mentioned that this is the first time that technology is growing 10x. Would you like to, talk a little bit more about that, and how will it impact everyone. I mean, from a common person to businesses to government.
So my own experience, 25 years ago when I was here, interestingly, when I had to talk to my mom, I had to spend $1.50. That's a lot of money per minute. And today, speech and text is free. Right? What happened? So the innovation happened in such rapid pace. A lot of them became needs from wants. Today, when I go to my television, Jesus Christ, the television knows me better than I know about my own self, and it starts to recommend such good content. I can tell you, anything and everything that we do will be powered by AI. You just click a URL, you touch a phone, before mouse, you're about to type a keyboard in there, something happens, some recommendation. So it's inevitable. We already are seeing it. Autonomous cars, all the way. So the experiences are getting better. So future, no, this is where, so 5 years ago, my own self with my team, we were able to actually handle petabytes of data, but we never could apply machine learning at petabyte scale. Okay? Suddenly, 5 years now, technologies like Hadoop, Spark primarily sitting on top of Hadoop. Today, my team does fantastic job, near real-time inferencing at massive scale, unbelievable. And it's seamless and they say it's easy. It's easy, right? So this is reflecting on just the last 5 years. And as you look forward, that's unbelievable too. In 5 years, I'm saying my own self, I'm going to experience space. That's my view and vision. I have a ticket with a company called Virgin Galactic. The CEO, Richard Branson, has experienced space last weekend. And
Right.
this is real. This is not conversational anymore.
Right.
Right? And that's the 10x advancement. When I started off, I used to spend 48 hours to reach from San Ramon, the city where I live, to Hyderabad, city where my mom lives. I have no hesitation to say a decade from now, it's no far than 2 hours time. Primarily because outer space is going to play a big component. So I might go to a nearest point where I actually get into a rocket ship, which takes me onto the other end of the globe and is going against the rotation of the Earth. And you're right there. And then it takes longer for you to go to that spot to get into the aircraft than
Right.
reaching the destination on the other end. And that's going to be real. There are a lot of experiments that are actually being done. SpaceX is big time into that, taking a closer look at it. And that's going to be real. So that is real 10x. Robotic arm surgery, a lot of experiments that are actually going on. 5G and in the future, 6G networks. A doctor sitting in India can perform a robotic arm surgery, barring all these compliances that we would have to actually work through, on a patient in South Africa. We can make it happen. We can really make it happen with technology. And this is, I'm talking like 10x fast. And when you take a closer look at it, quality of health would improve. The magic is we are shrinking time. We're shrinking time. So though time is constant, and I'm timestamped, and I don't know what that is, that is constant. But just because of AI, efficiencies are improving. Just because you're moving fast, because I socialize car to drone to car in 5 years, at least in the United States, in some areas, very, very highly likely. You're shrinking time. It's not that I'm changing my end date. So what exactly is happening is you're experiencing a lot more in many different ways. And you're using time very, very wisely. And a lot of the push would be in that direction. Distributed ledger is going to disrupt, just like internet and AI disrupted the ecosystem. It is going to democratize and then make things available, information so easily and so authentic, right? And it's going to improve efficiencies many, many ways. And that's still a 3 to 5x, because today, at least today it's better, but 2 years ago, I had to wait till Monday to move money to India so that I can help somebody in India.
Right.
Today it's gotten better, but with blockchain and distributed ledger, crypto, just matter of seconds. I'm sure there are a lot of regulations that will actually come into play. That will all happen. What happened when internet started? If we all thought, oh my God, we can't put our computer because information is gone, well, we would have been stuck. Pushed back all the way hundreds and thousands of years ago. When wheel got invented, if they thought, oh, this is going to displace employment, we all would have been there. So the 5x, 10x of technological advancement is inevitable. And I think it's taking off very well. I believe we are in the 10x phase right now, primarily taking space into perspective and so on. But simultaneously, we have to be extra careful about the side effects of a lot of the things that I'm discussing too. And be very diligent, and then be proactive and true to it. Right? I'll tell you, the winning story is being true to whatever you're doing.
Right.
Naturally, people will actually start to.
I think this decade itself, we are going to witness the greatest technological transition. It's going to have a few cons, because I think the technology is a double-edged sword, but the positives are going to be completely overwhelming us, because it stands to redefine our healthcare system, or education system, or financial institution, or entertainment, work, and so on and so forth. And we just scratching the surface, because just give a little perspective, because I'm in the space of AR, VR, MR. And before the COVID, nobody would have thought about remote work, remote education, remote healthcare. Nobody thought that how it would benefit us. But COVID, obviously, it's got so many cons, but it's got its pros. It's taken us and given and forced us to adapt to remote work and remote education. And now everybody is seeing the benefits. Microsoft has given an option of working from home forever for almost 50 or 60% of their staff, except for the engineers who are needed at the office space. Because they have understood that when you're working remotely, you miss the stress of travel from your home to work and work to back, because that at times can be possibly, if you're nearby, it's at least half an hour to sometimes 2.5 to 3 hours in places like big cities such as India and others. But besides that, you are completely unproductive for that whatever hours, when you're traveling and you're stuck in traffic and things like that. Here you are sitting at home and you have the freedom to be as productive, spend quality time with your family. And this is at this point of time with a flat medium, which is 2D. We are entering the spatial web or the web 3.0, where we will be entering the computer, as in everything is going to be digitized. Everything which is physical will be digitized, and that digitized object will give us information for us to better understand the product and make better businesses out of it. And plus then there is augmented reality, virtual reality glasses, where you will not feel that even right now with the 2D medium, we know that you are sitting over there, I'm sitting over here, you're in America, I'm in India. But with augmented reality, virtual reality, and these holographic possibilities, we will be with the glasses, AR and MR glasses. I could sit next to you, you could sit next to me, and the opportunities becomes endless. So yes, technology. This is just one example, but you cited so many examples. So yes, I'm super excited about what technology can bring. I would like to talk about blockchain because you opened up distributed ledger, but maybe I'll get into that later. Let's talk a little bit about your role as the Vp-Cto 5G MEC AI platform and next gen application at Verizon, and also maybe shine light on your initiative at Verizon, your cloud AI strategy, Orion, and your edge intelligence strategy, Leo. But before you get into that, maybe you just break down a little bit or demystify what 5G MEC is, or AI on the edges. So maybe that first you can break it down, and then you can start talk about your role and your initiatives at Verizon Media.
No, definitely, Eddie, definitely. And I think the way how I approach things, let's think about technology and then see the kind of problems that we would have to solve. And the reason why 5G Edge started to evolve, there are workloads which work very well in the cloud. And these workloads, to support the next generation applications, they have to be closer and closer to where the consumers are. And I'll explain the class of needs as well. Consumers are us, consumers are industry, factories, and then assembly lines, and then so on. Right? Now, edge compute is all about just moving those resources, the fabric, the network, the storage, and the compute, to the closest location where the application can perform well. It just turns out to be they are intelligent applications. We all have to actually stop using the word intelligence or AI only because that's default. You don't have an attribute of AI in whatever you're actually building. You're already losing the race. Don't even think about building it at that point in time. I'm saying this only because world moved on. When you do something, it assumes there is some kind of intelligence there. The moment intelligence comes into this machine learning model training and inferencing. So inferencing is an aspect or an activity that is closely coupled with the application. It sits on the edge. So the resources get moved onto the edge. That's high in n dimensions. It is just the server that's sitting in the cloud, which was in central AC, nice and cool. The server has to be exposed to all kind of rugged environments. So the industry is paying utmost attention to make these servers with the components work in rugged environments, and we deployed them. But do you think the server can actually survive by itself without the community, the cloud community? No. So there should be a fabric between the edge and the cloud. And I'll cite some reasons too. So there are 1,000 video cameras which are actually streaming into the edge, and there's an application that's running. It's around security. It's really safeguarding who should go in and who should not go in. That's really working very well. All this is fantastic. But for compliance, we would have to archive these videos for 5 years. What do? We can't build a data center everywhere we want. In an asynchronous way, we ship this to the cloud. That's one. The second thing is, we have to train these models. That way, we make them do whatever we want to do. And that's a subject in itself, very deep. This training is an offline one-off activity, which is very resource intensive. And these resources are easily available on the cloud. So when the data goes back to the cloud, use that to retrain the model and push it back to the edge. Push the machine learning model, the newly trained machine learning model, to the edge. And for folks who are listening and then trying to understand what is this training, it's as simple as, okay, I don't know blockchain. So my brain doesn't know blockchain. I'm starting to read more and more material about blockchain, and suddenly I start to understand blockchain. So a specific class of machine learning model or algorithm can do something, but as you feed more and more data, just like how I was reading about blockchain, that becomes more and more intelligent in that particular task. That gets deployed onto the edge. It's very simple. It's very simple. And it's always overblown through conversations and through approaches. But if we take the simplest approach, we want to build applications and we want to make it work. So Eddie and Ganesh decides there is some workload that should sit on the cloud, there's some workload that should sit on the edge. And Eddie works with a group and decides it's only one server that's good enough, one server. We can't get all the compute that we need in one server, so we might need 5 servers. That's about it. And these servers, they talk to the cloud. So this 5 servers on the edge, one server on the edge is the true edge. It's called the edge compute. It's nothing but bringing the data center in its smallest form factor to the edge. But the important aspect that we all have to keep in mind is this has to be connected to the cloud. That way it becomes meaningful. Leaving it in isolation is no good, primarily because of the needs of the application. When I go back and reflect my journey, 8 years ago, I joined Verizon. with specific emphasis on building revenue-generating data products. So I get excited, meaning it's not just about revenue, but you're really solving a problem which is business value, right? So there's some business value to whatever you're actually doing. And we used to ingest 50 billion records every day. This is 8 years ago. Now, but interestingly, the concept of machine learning was just then evolving on commodity hardware or using open source. So this is where I'll come back and reflect on open source, why it is so important and how it's transforming the world. Right? We always talk about community. I myself am plugged into multiple communities, but open source in general, it's such a transformative instrument and ecosystem. And anything and everything that our team has built is primarily based on open source. We pick one-offs here and there because the community is powerful. Instead of 2 engineers, there are 5,000 engineers working on the stack. Look at the power that the framework could actually
exactly
have. And this is not biased. This is across the globe by different people with different experiences. Right? There's no way how we can actually create an ecosystem like an open source ecosystem. And I prefer, if I don't have the stack, then my team goes and then figures it out. We might have to pay some license fee for some other stack. I can tell you 2% or less is licensed stack. The rest, we use community version. Only because it's a business and we have to drive revenue. We are losing a lot of dollars in maintaining the data because I said 50 billion records every day. Massive interest, multi-million-dollar interest. So it was natural. Then came AI. So still cloud had the power to crunch all this data and surface insights. All the applications were doing well on the cloud. And that's my tens of millions of dollars activity there. Interestingly, in the last 2 years, Verizon itself, we are really transforming, bringing in 5G to the consumers. It's very fascinating, the kind of power, the internet power that we'll have on the palm, and the experiences like AR, VR that we actually mentioned briefly. It's going to be seamless. While all this is happening with such a fantastic fabric, the world moved on. They said, you know what? We have video streams coming in. Forget your 100 billion records. Now we are saying megabytes and megabytes of frames coming in, and you have to apply machine learning near real time. Jesus Christ, what do we do now? So we move the compute. We say, you know what? For inferencing, it's constant. It has to be near real time. Move some of the compute closer and closer to where the needs is. That way, the SLAs are met. I'll give you an example. That way, we all start to understand what it means deploying something on the edge versus cloud. I have one camera, and I would like to detect pencils and pens, and then if there's a crack in a pen, we can send that stream very easily with the current network to the cloud, and you can do it near real time and surface insights too. That's fantastic. But still, that's 30 frames, many megabits that's actually being shipped onto the cloud. Now, suddenly, you have 1,000 cameras. Or the pencil would have reached the customer. The broken pencil would have reached customer. The data is still going up onto the cloud, right? So it's an exaggeration just to give you context. So how do we solve this? So what we do is we carve portion of the compute, get closer to the manufacturing unit. That way, all the 1,000 video feeds gets processed without shipping it onto the cloud. Because if you're talking private 5G or physical connectivity, that's super fast. It's super fast, and it's physics. Moving data from point A to the cloud versus right there, it's just physics. And that happens. So that's where we are around edge compute. I don't want people to really think this is something, oh my God, this is complex. It's just a server which was sitting there is now sitting here. There could be sophistication depending upon the enterprise, and they call it MEC, and then 5G, which is publicly available for the phone. There's an aspect of private 5G, which is used to connect all these video cameras, and then you can ship it to that location. That's edge compute. That's edge compute. It's not rocket science. The rocket science is already figured out. Right? So it's just a mechanics of moving resources and distributing resources to make applications work. That's edge compute. I'll pause and I would like to hear your thought, and then I'll continue.
Lovely, lovely.
Go ahead.
Thank you for simplifying it so much. Because most of the time, when people are having conversations, experts are having conversations, there's a lot of uh, heavy words, or overloaded or jargon driven words, and then you kind of miss out. You gave a beautiful metaphor, and simplified it. So thank you for doing that. You said you would like to reflect on open source, and I think that is something. It's an interesting conversation, because there are platforms like Facebook and there are social medias which are closed gardens and do not explore the open source model. And then there are companies who are understanding that when you create an open platform, there is so much benefits it can create to the ecosystem that you are building, because you are accessing the a collective intelligence to build your system, and that always is better, and that always will translate into acceleration of what you're building, rather than building closed gardens and trying to hold on to your patents and stuff like that. So would you like to maybe expand on that?
All these closed systems are very agenda driven systems. They go in with agenda. The open community, right, they think very differently and do it very differently, because they don't have an agenda. The purpose is to really make something happen and something better. The agenda is not to really optimize and make it more efficient and drive revenue. That's not the purpose at all. The purpose is how innovative can this be, and then take this open source framework from point A to point B so that we can solve this problem X. This is the general view who are participants. But look at the undercurrent. Who is part of the open source community? You think is he getting paid? No. Why is he there? Look at his motivation. His motivation is to make the difference. And imagine thousands of people with that motivation coming together on a framework, working together to make it happen. And that's where the entire world changed because of open source. Go back and then look at Java, which is used everywhere. Pick any framework. Most of the frameworks are open source. And they thrive very well. I'm a very big fan of. And then of late, very recently, I said, okay, how can I be part of the community? And I took a slightly different approach. And this happened through an non-agenda driven meeting with an individual by name Bill Wright, who's an employee of Red Hat, who started a foundation or a committee called the Neurosystem Consortium. The purpose is to really focus on AI and make it seamless. That way, the corporates can actually take it and then use it. One of the goals is to make AI applications, building AI applications simple, all the way to the edge applications too, as part of this consortium. Do you want to know the people who agree to participate? Stanford, very soon there could be Berkeley participation. And they have their own projects, and these projects are very fascinating. I'll tell you in a second. Stanford Linear Accelerator, the group. And then our own corporation, Verizon Media, is very actively playing a role. Red Hat, many folks from Red Hat. Intel is playing a role. And the list goes on. So suddenly, what happened? Well, nobody is getting paid there. People are so excited about the mission that we all come together and then try to. We are in a process of solving, in its simplest way, one very simple problem and a complex problem. So let me reflect on the very simple problem. Disk failures is very, very common. Let's build a platform first, building blocks that are required to predict disk failures. That way, before it dies, we just know, we better know, and then take a corrective action, then wait for that to happen. So it's very possible. It's very possible, and people have tried it out. And today there is a team in the consortium who's focused literally on, with a lead, focused on really operationalizing all these different bits and pieces to predict disk failure. And all the 15, 20 corporations can take this back and then use it within their own corporation. So what happened? These 20 different corporations are bringing in their experiences and then trying to solve the simplest problem and making it super simple. That way it's easily used. On the other end of the spectrum, Stanford Linear Accelerator is a place where physicists aspire to do experiments. It's a 2 or 3 mile long linear accelerator where particles get bombarded with X-rays, and then they do a lot of research. And there's an interesting camera which is looking just like us, but it's the camera. Today it's 120 frames per second. That's the frequency at which it actually captures those images. And we can apply computer vision to really surface insights about the research. Interestingly, there's a lot of information that is actually lost because we really need cameras which can do hundreds of thousands of frames per second. And it's very interesting to note that Slack is actually building 1 million frames per second camera on site right there. And that's being done. Imagine applying machine learning near real time for those 1 million frames per second coming out. That's non-trivial task. Now, I can tell you today very openly, I don't have a solution. But I'm telling you openly too, we can solve it only because we are a community. So when we solve that, there are so many learnings, all these corporations can take it back and then just apply it internally. That's community. You can spend millions of dollars, but to tell a story like what we're discussing right now, it's very, very hard. Right? Because those stories are agenda driven. Here, people come in, volunteer time, identify an area where they can play a role. And nobody shies taking a role. So,
by the way, I must tell you that Ramesh Raskar from MIT is working on something like that, building a camera which captures 1 million frames per second. And yes, the power of community. It was plain to see, post the pandemic. Building a vaccine normally takes the process is between 3 to 4 to 5 years or maybe longer. But we did it in a world record time of 6 months time, and the only reason we did it was because everybody collaborated and they realized that this was the most urgent problem in the world, and everybody joined in, and that's the reason we were able to produce a vaccine. Now, taking that example, if you stretch it to all other problems in the world, and if we collectively address those problems, I think the world will look fantastic in a very, very short time. We are staring at an existential risk when it comes to climate crisis. Just recently in the month of April, 101 Nobel laureates signed a memorandum saying how urgent this issue is. But still, somehow the global leaders are not paying attention. Canada, there was a heat wave recently and hundreds of people died. I don't know, what are we waiting for? I really hope and pray that we understand the importance of the urgency of the climate crisis and join hands to solve the problem right now. Otherwise, we will not have any. Yes, there are entrepreneurs such as Elon Musk working on, making a space-faring civilization. But even looking at an alternate home comes with its own problems. You are someone who's really passionate about space. You are also, I believe, taking a flying lesson. I mean, would you like to talk a little bit about that? And do you think that's possible in a lifetime to be spacefaring civilization?
I'll come to that, but there's something that I wanted to reflect. I was just thinking as I was hearing you. I think it's not about money. It is about changing habits. It's about changing habits. So I think if we start to take a look at it in a slightly different way, and each one of us start to understand if we change certain habits.
Very true.
A simple example is, I'm not going to drive this week. Right? We think it's an electric car, solar power car, but still there's a lot of things that get recycled and this waste there too, right? So that's an attribute. So that's an aspect that's never ever socialized very well. You made me think. you're saying so many things, and then I started to assemble and compile it, and this is what is the outcome. So no doubt there is dollars, no doubt there is innovation, but also it's super important to understand and reflect on and be aware of certain of that. Very simple thing. Right? Going back to space, and the humans and Mars. Will it happen? How useful do we really need it? So I'm a big proponent of innovation. Innovation needs to happen. Whether we want to go live in Mars or not, that's a secondary issue. If there is an opportunity to explore space, we'll have to just go find ways to go explore them. A proponent of that. Whether it will really happen in 10 years, 50 years, 100 years, honestly, I don't have an answer. Space experience would be commoditized. Hopefully in 10 years, maybe not 5 years. It's astronomically expensive. While I have a reservation, I have to think twice. It's $250K. That's a lot of dollars. You can actually, just to give an expression, you can get a home. Many places in the United States for $250K. And do you really want to spend that for 1 hour experience? Right? It's always a debate. That's going to change. Eventually, that's going to change. Now, if somebody challenges me, why do you want to spend so much? Those experiences will lead to make me think differently. Right? And only if I can afford.
Exactly.
Whenever I can afford. Then your experience, because I live on experiences. Experiences matter to me. Happiness and experiences matter to me a lot. If that's out of place, then I'm doing something wrong. It's of no use at that point. So space will be real. Space exploration will be real. To see it being commoditized, it's more like a decade from now. A lot of investments are going on in this direction. That's an area where it's you'll actually start to see. You'll see more research in space, and then you'll see people going into space. Then you will see people going from US San Ramon to Kachiguda via space, right? So all these things would be real.
Everything starts with experiences, and experiences are fundamental to who you are or who you become. And I think everyone should strive for experiences, whether it's good or bad or ugly, because experiences shape you. It all our learnings happen because of experiences, and we should not shy away from experiences because they are the fundamental core of who we are or who we become. I was having a conversation with you earlier, and you mentioned about blockchain. You mentioned about how you had visited a company. Companies are leveraging it for purposes for as basic as retail and supply chain. So I want you to talk a little bit about that, and also maybe reflect on decentralized finance, because there is this growing drop of a currency, of fiat currency, from regular institutions to D5, because just in October 2020, decentralized finances, it was worth some $11 billion. I mean, there was some 11 billion worth of cryptocurrency which was locked in various DeFi protocols. But as of today, it's $55 billion. So that's a huge jump. It's almost exponential. And somehow the banks and the traditional financial industries are getting very scared. But why should be that approach? Why should the narrative be that, oh, you're going to be disrupted? Why can't the narrative be that, okay, for hundreds of years, we have worked in a centralized function and maybe we made enough money, but this is really good. It can create huge benefits. So let us iterate.
I try to use very simple language. That way we all start to resonate and understand this ecosystem. The problem at hand is very simple. So Eddie's view of truth and goodness is different from Ganesh's view of truth and goodness. We all have our own views. Today, applications are highly secure. We understand it. Oh, if it is highly secure, this is what it means. It can't be hacked, XYZ. It's scalable. Oh, it can accommodate 50 million people. They can log in, it works. Scale. People get it. AI powered, they get it. But there is no easy way to enforce trust. And the distributed ledger is an attempt to bring in a trust framework. I'll tell you what it means. Now, the two of us, we actually have a conversation. And then if we have to take notes, we're going to take notes in our own way. But the two of us, we're going to have a conversation. But I take notes, and you can actually make those edits. But both of us, we are going to have the same copy, identical copy. Then we have the exact same information on both ends. Now, let's take that one level ahead. Now, we want a framework where many people look at it and then say, I agree, I agree, I agree. Then it becomes real. Oh, they all agree. So it's true. It's real. This information is right. So the attempt of distributed ledger is one of the very important attributes is to solve or build a trust frame. So when I write something on the ledger, it technically gets returned to the ledger after the consensus. After many people having conversations, I'm just making this up. When I say conversations, these are like code exchanges, transactions through various protocols. And like policies would say 75% of the members say yes, then this is real. It's real. Now when somebody looks at it, see how important, how valuable it is. It's not modified. One, it's not modified. It's been approved by many of them. Also, when I look at it, and that's real truth. So that's what is happening. That's what is the foundational principle of at least a distributed ledger. The various flavors, the public blockchain and the private blockchain. The thing that you mentioned about crypto, DeFi, that's primarily in the public blockchain space, which we'll discuss briefly. But private blockchain is going to actually pick up. It's starting to play a very, very big role. And I was actually referring to a close view how the produce, this is when I say produce, an apple from farm to the consumer. What is the journey? When the consumer holds the apple, he has no idea from where it is coming, what it has. Today, even in the United States, that's how it is. And a technology like distributed ledger can be used as a technology framework to attempt to build that trust between the consumer, that is me who bought the apple, and the producer, the person who really produced the apple. And I'll take you through the flow. Also, I wanted to reflect how automated some of these packing industries are. And AI is already used there. So when you actually see all these fruits going, there are about 16 images taken from different angles. So they know the fruit very well. They can tell the health of the fruit, the quality of the fruit, and the size. They look at the size of the fruit, and then they actually segment it out. So every fruit has a home based on a lot of these attributes. So if it has rich attributes, then it's classified as good. And as some of the attributes deteriorate, then it actually goes towards the end of the food chain. And it gets distributed. At the end of the day, that's a business too. Everybody has to make money. So the one that has a lot of good attributes is always sold at a higher cost. But what's interesting is, it was tagged as very good, but the journey from then to the time the person has it in his hand, it could be anything. It could go through like in degrees centigrades, 43 degrees centigrade for 50 hours, and then suddenly it goes into 0 degrees, and then what's the value? Or what happened to all the vitamins and minerals within the fruit? There's a study in itself. I was fortunate enough to actually speak to a professor and a scientist who is very deep into horticulture. Her specialization is avocado. So I was listening to and learning a lot from them. How much time they invest trying to understand to get a best avocado grown in an agricultural farm. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of technological advancements, primarily in the packing area, using artificial intelligence and so on. Distributed ledger can be used, attempted to be used as a framework to build applications between the consumer, the retailer, the packer, and the grower too. Because now it's not Eddie's database. It's a platform that's sitting on the cloud somewhere. There are hooks. Everybody can actually start writing into the hooks. But what's interesting is once I write it, I can't be smart enough to go make an edit because it's a distributed ledger, and there's a lot of immutable attributes that are actually built in. And if you want to be super careful, or you can actually be part of that ledger network and then have a peer, even in a private blockchain too. You can go to that degree as well. So that area is actually maturing a lot. And what is that it's going to solve? It's building a trust framework. It's building a trust framework in a very distributed way, and in an open way too. And the same thing is applied outside in public blockchain, where we get to hear only about most often we get to hear about cryptocurrency. But it is fascinating to see how primarily Ethereum and the altcoins around Ethereum is actually used to solve different problems. Now, today, if we want to get a top-level domain, there are altcoins or altchains and procedures that you can actually use to secure one. So it is not just a currency. It is also starting to solve problems. So there are gaming companies who are actually starting to use some of these altcoins to create these virtual worlds and so on. That is starting to pick up as well. But overall, the public blockchain as such, for some of the things that we are actually discussing, the efficiencies have to improve because the transaction rate is very low. And the DeFi part is so complicated. Honestly, I don't have a simple answer to that at all. But I strongly believe crypto is a foundation to remove friction of how we use currency across the globe. That's a very generalized way of actually saying this. It translates to as simple as, oh, I have my money in the bank, but I can't move it today. I have a need. Why? Why is the bank closed? Why is my money in a closed bank? Right? So these things don't go very well in today's world. And that's where DeFi is going to start to play a very, very big role. DeFi is being attempted even with large banks on private blockchains. There are a lot of tests that are actually going on in a very controlled environment. The currencies are actually evolving. It's super complex environment. But eventually, in months and years to come, a lot of the clouds will actually go away, and then it'll become like a credit card.
Right.
The day when credit card started first, people would have been scared. Oh my God, my money is here sitting on the card. What if I lose my card? Because all my money is the bank in the locker. Right? So eventually, I think we'll all live through this phase. And then there are technological advancements that needs to happen, layers on top of today's different versions of blockchains. Simultaneously, there are policies and governing rules that need to come around these big changes in the ecosystem. I'm not authoritative in the space at all. I'm an observer at this point in time
Right.
when it comes to crypto and other.
The framework or the ethos beyond blockchain is so powerful and so profound. The idea that it will bring transparency into the ecosystem, take out the opaqueness, bring in immutability and a decentralized way of functioning, I think is so profound. And that is why it excites me. So my last question to you: among all the technology, artificial intelligence is that one technology which is will eventually bind to every other technology and become really potent and create benefits and transformational which is beyond even what we can fathom at this point in time. That is that one tool. You've been invested in the space. Now you've been away from India for 25 years. So my last question is this: if you had to apply artificial intelligence in 5G to bring changes in India, what would you do?
The benefits of having a farm is diminishing by the year for various reasons: water, or crop damage, rainfall. So there's a lot that actually goes on. So it's not very exciting for many of them to just go and then invest in farming and make it a business too. Right? It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's a business too, because it's their livelihood. Just imagine you help them magically. I'll start to highlight what that magic means. Magically, let them know only this 1% of the farm requires some fertilizers or pesticides and the rest is not needed. Or you alert them in advance that, oh, you know what, this section of the crops are not getting enough water, or the other section is actually getting more water than it's actually needed. Both are bad. And these things are very, very easily possible with AI and machine learning. And now I'll tell you the magic. Flying drones is kind of very seamless. You actually give GPS coordinates and then give the height. And assuming it's a good weather condition, it can just go and then just get the entire view of your farm. You can fly it as low as you want. You want to get better resolution, or you can fly it as high as you want. Just imagine you have community drones within villages and community programs which actually gives advice in their own language, because they can't speak. Many of them, maybe they can speak English, right? But let's assume this person can speak only English. There are translators software which can actually convert and translate to and communicate them to become more efficient in whatever they're actually doing. That's magic, right? That's magic. AI can definitely play a very big role. And this is where what I envision for folks who are actually listening to me, and I'll continue to do my part as well, innovate in the area of needs. Don't just focus on innovation in wants and experiences. Right? Those investments go a long way. Those investments will go a long way.
Right. Thank you, Ganesh. It was such an insightful conversation, and I enjoyed the conversation because I see you, I feel you. You have that desire to bring about a change. You are a change maker, and you still 25 years you are away from India, but you have a deep connect and really want transformation to happen in India. And so, thank you for being part of the show, sharing your insights. We wish you the very best. Wish you the very best for your computer literacy program that you're talking about. And I hope that you create huge transformation, not just in India, but around the world. In that note, to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, please press the subscribe button. And until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.